How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and today we have the pleasure of watching C-32 AMG in probably one of the most powerful tier 10 medium tanks, if not the greatest tier 10 medium tank that's currently available in World of Tanks as of the most recent patch. And yeah, maybe this will change in the future, but we're about to see a masterclass of the CS63. Of course, the speed boosting tier 10 medium that has the ability to relocate super quickly, deal a ton of damage, as well as spot the opponents. And you're seeing, of course, on Muravanka, one of the maps that is probably well suited to the CS, since you can relocate quite a lot. You can move from both the left and right hand spawn if you've got good enough camo and you use all of the bushes and everything like that. Then yeah, you can have some really brilliant results, and hopefully we'll be seeing that within this replay. Now then, what I love about watching replays on the CS63 is that everyone typically plays this tank differently. I mean, the tank itself is very much similar to a lot of the other tier 10 mediums, except you do get this speed boost, and if utilised correctly can be one of the biggest differentiators between all of the top tier 10 mediums. So straight away, really nice position on Muravanka. Now, of course, the eastern side of the map is typically where a lot of the opponents are going to be residing, especially the ones that you want to be able to farm. Now, the left-hand side is where usually all of the heavy tanks go. I'm sure that if you're watching this, you probably already know this, but what I like about this position is that early on you can spot people who maybe make the mistake of crossing here, which is nice using the bushes here. Usually you've only got this one bush or one tree right here that kind of keeps you hidden, and it doesn't really, there's no other trees to really block your line of sight on anyone crossing, so that's always nice. One thing that you do have to be aware of though is tanks like you saw at the beginning, the light tanks, things like the Shah, are going to be able to spot you quite easily if they do indeed YOLO through the bush line, and often you can actually see that a lot of the light tanks on the enemy team will push through here and they can spot you. So you have to be a little bit careful when getting into a position like this. But remember, the CS63 can go about 65 kilometers an hour, so you can move out of the position quite quickly. You just have to be very reactive in this sort of area. So, what's special about this replay, and why did I decide to actually choose this one over some of the others that you can see on the replay site? Well, it's because of the fact that A, lots of damage, but B, that you can see this tank in all its glory up against a lot of the opponents that you'll typically come across. Now, the Jaeger does indeed get spotted, which is nice. You're seeing a nice little shot into the side of the superstructure, which is nice. But one thing that a lot of people kind of forget is that this tank's ability to relocate, like we've always talked about, and from the beginning, it's this tank kind of main benefit is that if you find yourself in a position that's terrible, if you find yourself in a position that you maybe could take advantage of more, then you can use this mobility that the tank has and the flexibility that the tank has to come away with a win. And quite often on World of Tanks, it's flexible tanks that are actually the best ones, and how you can come away just dominating your opponents. And often, as is the way with most things, the most skilled players will usually take a flexible tank over any other tank in the game. You know, the armor model of a lot of tanks can be usually by skilled player basically removed. Like a lot of the armor doesn't really matter for most of the time, unless you're thinking about a Object 279. But you know, most of the times good players will still overcome you, whereas when you're in a flexible tank and you genuinely just find that you can outplay opponents, then you don't really have to worry about armor, and it becomes one of the things that you can kind of shove in the background. You don't need to think about it, and that's really what you see the top tier players picking. It's why you don't ever really see the Maus being like a super competitive tank, because it's limited by both the speed and also the armor model, and that's really where I think people always misunderstand when it comes to like the top pinnacle of vehicles on World of Tanks. And yes, I mean, it might be easier to play the Maus for a average player or someone like that, but it's not necessarily because it's good. Now then, this is the problem with going on the eastern side of Miravanka, and that's because when you come to this position, a lot of the times you see that, you know, maybe your team fail on this side, or maybe you get to the point where maybe you get spotted by a light tank who's YOLO'd in, or just someone has decided that they're going to make a misplay on the enemy team just to spot you, and then you can get farmed. Now, the CS did get very lucky to have bounced the FV4005 shell, which, let's be honest, is probably something that you won't ever really replicate, especially with the armour that the CS has. Now, CS's armour is not like absolutely dog shit, but it is certainly not the best, and you could probably hope for a lot better armour on a medium tank, but it's not really what this tank is about. This is what this tank is about. 70 kilometers an hour, relocating to another flank, taking advantage of the fact that he's won the eastern side, or lost the eastern side of the map, got out of there and decided to push the advantage against the opponents on this flank. And you're seeing here the STI trying to flick on a shot into the side of him. Didn't quite work, but you know, it's all about just basically getting the shots in early on in this game and taking the initiative to do that early, using the speed to facilitate that. You're going to come away with a much better result. And already picking up 7,000 damage, you would be very, very happy as a normal player to have picked up 7,000 damage, but this CS63 player is certainly no normal player. C32 AMG is all about racking up the damage. And you can see here managing to spot the FV4005, the tank that probably is a little bit triggered that he didn't pen earlier. But that doesn't really matter. Nice little shell into him. Decides to load the HE, and that's why he managed to pick up 400 damage there. Kind of low rolling, to be honest with you, with the HE round, but that doesn't matter a whole lot. It's just a case of now being the forward tank to be able to kind of rinse your opponents. Now, misses the FV, not particularly the best thing, since he's on a fairly chunky amount of hit points so far. And with most of the team kind of not in a position where if the FE was to YOLO to be able to damage him. Now, for some reason, the K91 PT, or the Bobject at tier 9, I would assume, is actually pushing up quite aggressively. Now, the FE is in no position to really be able to hit him at the moment, since he's probably still reloading from the first shell, but now it's time to actually pull back. Not the best of trades by any means. And with the Tortoise camping over in the bushes, there's no way of spotting him really, and this is not a good place for the CS63. You're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. You've got this sausage sandwich going on, you've got an STI behind you, you've got a FV4005 in front of you, you've got a Tortoise who could be anywhere in front, you could even see them over here, but a nice round into the FE to pick up nearly 600 damage with these HE rounds, which is lovely. But now you've got the problem of coming up against a K91 PT, which it's not necessarily the most OP tank or anything like that, but if you can shut down the tracks like you're seeing here, excellent shot. It's almost one of those clutch shots, and picking up not only damage but also assistance. Lovely work. And this is really where the game starts to turn from just being a very, very good game to an excellent, outstanding replay, and that is why, of course, we've showcased it. I feel like a lot of people forget how powerful the relocation within World of Tanks is, because often, you know, people always relocate in the wrong times, and that's really where people have this fear about moving around the map, but it's the moving around the map and adjusting to the scenario that you get yourself into that changes your game from maybe having like an average of 2,000 damage to pulling over 5,000 damage. It's just small like movements around the map to kind of adapt to the scenario, and that's really where it kind of differentiates the okay players, or the average, or maybe even just like good players, you know, the 52% win rate players that are fairly well versed in how World of Tanks typically plays out, but maybe they don't understand some of the kind of core concepts of moving and actually taking their game to the next level, and that's really where these top 60% win rate players and above are so good at the game. Not only have they mastered the basics, which if you are interested in finding out about the basics, then I highly recommend you go and check out the how to get better at World of Tanks videos that we've done on the channel. I'll leave the link at the end of this, but it's also about kind of picking your moments, picking when to push and when to actually move. So 10,500 damage by C32. Very, very good result. But it's not over yet. There are still 4 tanks on the enemy team, and a Tortoise can certainly rip through 800 damage very quickly. So you definitely don't want to be over pushing, you don't want to be overextending yourself or getting caught out, because, you know, on a one shot with only 167 damage, even the Shah MLE with one of his bursts is going to be able to actually hit you and kill you. So yeah, you just need to play it a little bit more passively now that the hit point pool has come down, and you're seeing that with this player here. Really, really nice to see. Really refreshing to see a player that hasn't just fired exclusive premium. There's been a fair few rounds, but they're not exclusive, which is nice. But that's really where I feel like the top players sometimes go wrong. A lot of players will just fire pure premium, which to a degree will help, but it's kind of one of those things where you don't actually need a lot of premium most of the times, and you're just wasting credits for the most part. It does guarantee you typically more damage, I would say, but yeah, I don't know. It's kind of are you really enjoying the game when you're losing credits even after a brilliant win? But now is the time to push. There is the Foch 155, which, I mean, he has to sneeze on the CS63 to actually take him out. The Object 263, which is a very good tank, but a non-turreted at that, and has just been absolutely clouted by the Jagdtiger, and now a one-shot for the CS. So, unfortunately, did get spotted in the push, but you know, you can remain undetected again, go blind, and then use the bushes and the camo to kind of pull it over to the western side of the map from the eastern. And often you can actually come into bushes like over here and get shots on the middle. Now you're seeing the CSB a little bit wary of pushing or YOLOing in, because there isn't really any team support that can kind of help out at the moment. But a nice round into the back of the 263 secures some damage and making him a one shot now. But a lovely next round in does indeed miss, which is super annoying, but yes, the next round should hit, and it does. The Shah now pushing towards the T30, probably hoping to actually remove him from the game before the game ends. And unfortunately the CS misses the Shah, meaning that you are now in a difficult position to really make it work. But the Foch 155 is a horrible tank to come up against. The Shah over there is currently dealing with the Waffle Panzer IV, and he's pumped him full. And so, yeah, now it's time to get the game thrown back on the shoulders of the CS, and hopefully a win can come out of this. But so far, can see the Shah, but it's not a guaranteed hit. And you're seeing here waiting until, you know, he's going to be able to get a clear shot. Sometimes you do have to take the risky shots in the game, but often if, for example, he did actually shoot the Shah, you know, you never know, he could actually come from nowhere and end up taking you out. Unfortunately, he doesn't manage to pen the side of the Foch 155, or the top of the Foch 155. Probably was kind of unlucky to not do that, but with only a few rounds left, only 7 rounds, you can't be wasting them willy-nilly. But the Foch 155 is YOLOing at this point, or at least trying to bait him into making a mistake. But with the Foch's big horn cupola, it's probably not the best to be fighting on a ridgeline against ACS. But now the Shah kind of pushing up, he's trying to fully aim, he's fired his rounds, oh, so close to being kind of the Duke of Death. And with the Jagdtiger on a one shot, the CS on a one shot, it's not looking good. But the Shah is not a tank you really want to be duking, but given the fact that there is both of them and they're both kind of push at the same time, hopefully you can come away with a nice win. Unfortunately, can he get a shot into the Shah? It is, and he does. What a brilliant result. And I just love watching the CS63 replays, and players that obviously know what they're doing in the tank and making it work so well. I just love watching these, and hopefully you do too. And if you did enjoy this replay, I highly recommend you check out some of the others in the gameplay and tank reviews playlist that we've got on the channel, and hopefully you'll join me back in another video. But if you haven't already, please do subscribe, as it massively helps out the channel. But more importantly, please leave a like so that people know about this replay by a fantastic player, C32 AMG. Thank you, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Goodbye.